was prosecuted following a shortfall at an audit, which they demanded I paid back to avoid a theft charge. And as soon as that was done, they then prosecuted me for false accounting, which I was determined to plead not guilty to because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But I was advised by my barrister that I'd be standing up in Crown Court against the Post Office, which was the Crown, and with no sort of mountable defence, I'd be found guilty. So it was much better to plead guilty to stay out of prison.
Tell us what it was like when you first realised what was happening to you.
Well, it was horrific. I bought my local village shop along with my parents as a means to be able to stay and work in rural West Wales, and for 5 years it worked very well. But then in 2010, I was prosecuted following a shortfall at an audit, which they demanded I paid back to avoid a theft charge. And as soon as that was done, they then prosecuted me for false accounting, which I was determined to plead not guilty to because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But I was advised by my barrister that I'd be standing up in Crown Court against the Post Office, which was the Crown, and with no sort of mountable defence, I'd be found guilty. So it was much better to plead guilty to stay out of prison.
Would you have gone to prison, Tim, if you'd have gone not guilty and been found guilty? Would you have gone to prison, do you think?
That's what the barrister assured me would happen, so I pled guilty and received a suspended prison sentence.
Did you ever doubt yourself, Tim? Because I mean, you're an honest person and all of that, but when this is all, people are just shouting at you and telling you you've done something wrong, did you think, well, maybe I have done something wrong?
Yes, because the Post Office told nearly each and every one of us that we were the only ones having problems. At the time, I didn't realise it could have been a computer problem causing this, but when I was interviewed and investigated by them, I said, I haven't done anything dishonest. You can have access to my bank accounts and my finances. You can see I haven't taken this money, which they didn't do. But they told us that we were the only ones having problems. So you then begin to doubt yourself and think, well, if I am the only one out of thousands that this has happened to, then it must perhaps be my mistake.
Well, someone said to us earlier, surely they must have looked to see that where the money went. And if it hasn't gone into your bank, but they didn't look at that. They just, there was a shortfall, so they assume you'd taken the money. They never actually looked to see if the money had gone into your bank account.
No, they weren't interested. The contract that we had with the Post Office was so loaded on their side that we were responsible for any losses, and we couldn't prove that they weren't our losses, so they just demanded the money.
How did it feel when you were telling people, family and friends, you're pleading guilty?
Close family and friends understood, because all postmasters were good, honest people. The selection process was so rigorous. We all had no criminal or financial background problems at all. So luckily for me, my close family and friends believed me, but the wider community, very much so, as the point you're making, people would say, well, you've pled guilty. How can you plead guilty to something that you didn't do? And that cliche of there's no smoke without fire.
Yeah. And what did that do to how you felt, Tim? How did it feel when you were going through this?
Oh, well, for a number of years, I ended up withdrawing from social interactions. I just couldn't face people questioning me about it all the time because I had no kind of real defence to it.
And how do you feel about? I mean, where do you apportion blame? Because I think blame needs to be apportioned here. And to many people who are coming new to this story, they just can't quite believe that the Post Office could install a dodgy computer system and then prosecute you themselves for stealing from them because their own computer system has screwed up. People just can't believe that's allowed to happen in Britain, but it did. Where do you apportion blame?
Well, this is called the Horizon scandal, but it's not really the Horizon scandal. Horizon was a ropey IT system, but ropey IT or bad IT systems exist everywhere. The problem is the people at the Post Office chose to use it to demand money from us. But the real problem is once these problems started to emerge, they fought us tooth and nail and litigated furiously against us for the last decade and tried to deny us justice.
And they must have known that the computer was a problem because it was happening all over the place. It wasn't just you, it was a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, the public inquiry that's going on has shown that they knew from the very beginning that it wasn't a reliable system. But I think they'd put all their eggs in that basket, and once they've started down that road, they had to, continue to defend their system. And then once they, but 2012, when Second Sight, Ron Warmington and Ian Henderson were brought into the post office to investigate it, the post office were told that none of their convictions were safe. But they then they sacked those investigators and doubled down and continued to fight us.
What would you like to see happen? I mean, there's various things. There's people with CBEs who ran the process. Would you like to see that withdrawn? Do you want to see people prosecuted? I mean, you've been part of the system. This has ruined your life to an extent. What action would you like to see?
Well, yes, people need to be held accountable, but importantly, first, what we need the post office to be removed as arbiters of the compensation schemes, because they prosecuted us and they litigated against us, and it feels like we're still litigating with them now. All of the convictions need to be quashed. And Lord Falconer yesterday stressed the point that should the government wish to do so, they could legislate it today and there'd be cross-party support for it. So there's really no barrier to all past post office convictions being quashed.
And just finally, if you could see a post office boss, Paula Venables or any of these people, what would you say to them?
Why did they choose to throw good, honest, hard-working people under the bus in an attempt to either defend an IT system or the brand of the post office?
And just finally, Tim, are you all right now? Is life going okay?
We're getting there. People, it's been good to have my name cleared, the conviction quashed. I haven't had any kind of meaningful redress or compensation from the post office as yet. Hopefully that will come now, sooner rather than later, and me and everyone else that's involved with it can start to move on.